Good morning, good afternoon, good day, and good evening. I don't know what time of day it is for you, but for me, it's the good time of day. We are back at it again today, and I am struggle streaming right now. So forgive me for having this time where normally I would start right on time, and today I'm not starting right on time. Today I am starting a little behind, but that's okay. We're here now. We're getting started now, and this I'm not going to keep you guys too long tonight. I apologize. The topic, I wish I had a whole team of people to do this research with me, because that's one of the issues that I'm struggling with right now is that I have a subject that I definitely want to talk about, and it definitely does deal with diversifying, right? Not putting all your eggs in one basket. And there's a reason why I want to talk about this subject in particular right now. There's certain things that are happening that I'm noting, and in noting these things that are happening, it becomes very, very, very apparent that some things are going to need to change. There's some things that are definitely going to need to change, and they're going to need to change in a major way. And it means that the thing that I keep saying to everyone else, right? That you need to get comfortable with being uncomfortable is something I definitely need to apply to myself at this point, right? So it's not just something I tell you that, hey, get comfortable with being uncomfortable. It's something that I myself am going to have to start dealing with. And I'm going to jump right into it here in a moment, but I also want to make sure I let everybody know. I know that people, they've been following me wanting to talk about the situation with Cain Velasquez. And I have another short clip. It's kind of an essay type deal that's going to be going on here with Kane specifically, and that'll be coming out later today, tonight, because he actually was arraigned today. And I know that there are individuals that want to talk about the Cain Velasquez situation. And as a or get my input on the Cain Velasquez situation. Now, someone just asked, said, "Where's the link?" The link is actually in the description, or in the has a in the text box down there below, and has a not the description, in the conversation tab that's there below. So the link should be there. We're good. We're popping today, but I want to talk about something. As a the Kane thing. So if you came here to talk about Cain Velasquez, that will be later tonight. There'll be something else that comes up later tonight that I'm going to drop in. I'm actually in the middle of the edit. This is one of the reasons why I say I would definitely like to have uh, a whole team of individuals that would be able to jump in here and get some of this research going with me. We do have Westradamus in the house today. I'm pulling you up right now, but I want to hop in. I want to talk about what I mean by diversification, or why we need to diversify and not put all your eggs in one basket. So there's two things that as a I'm gonna put. Let me do this. Let me put these two documents up here because I don't want them to as a I'm really hesitant now because of what happened, and let me talk about what happened in a moment here, but I'm really hesitant on how it is I'm talking, or what it is I'm going to say, and how I'm going to say this because of what happened here with another reputable source, right? So, two of the things I want to talk about today, and let me share my screen here. One of them is going to deal with this DHS issues National Terrorism Advisory System Bulletin, right? And I'm going to talk about this. I'm probably not going to read it in its entirety, but I'm going to share the link, and I'll probably I'm not going to say probably, I'm going to put the link to this down in the description below, along with another document here that's from another .gov website, CISA.gov. It deals with mis, dis, malinformation, and it gives you a definition behind this. And I want to talk about this. I'm not the first person to talk about this, and I highly doubt that I'm going to be the last. But to that end, one of the things that's going to be happening here, let me tell you guys what the long and short of this. When I talk about getting comfortable with being uncomfortable, I'm going to be setting up, or I'm establishing. One of the things I was working on last night and today is establishing a Odyssey webpage, or odyssey.com. Is built on library, is built on blockchain. I know people have been talking about Rumble and other platforms, but that's the platform that I've decided on, and there's a reason why, and I'll discuss that a little later on why it is that I'm going to simulcast stream on both YouTube and to Odyssey as well. And there'll be things that I can talk about there on Odyssey that I cannot talk about on YouTube. And the way that the algorithm and everything is built on Odyssey, because it's based on blockchain, the level of censorship is greatly and vastly reduced on what they're able to censor. So looking at it from a technology standpoint, Rumble is one that I hear people talk about quite a bit. However, with Rumble, they can do the same thing YouTube's doing at a later date. And if they decide that they want to do things and they say that things that might sound like it's coming from the left is something that they want to censor, they can do it the same way that right now YouTube is doing things that they feel like it's coming from the right. So what do I mean by that? What do I mean by YouTube is talking about these things? And here, as you can see, I am definitely uh, treading on some grounds in looking at Library and Odyssey of options that I was looking at, right? So this is uh, some of the stuff I've been looking at today and last night and going on. But in looking at all of these things, one of the things I came across, and this is the Hills Rising suspended from YouTube for a week. And I'm not going to play this video, but I'm going to link this one as well in the description as well. So for you guys to go in there and go take a look at it. I've reached out to two people that I know in the industry right now, trying to see if I can get some feedback, because I want to verify this before I actually really get into depth in talking about this particular situation, because of what they talked about and being able to share CPAC information, which is the issue that they're having, is sharing information from CPAC. And also for a episode they have where they put up a news clip from a reputable news source where it had the ex-president from the previous administration on there, and it goes directly to one of the things that I was alluding to with the MDM from the CISA. And let me just jump into this, because this has that aspect of it on what it is dealing with, that part of it, on being able to be censored. When I seen that story, I've been talking about doing it on doing dual platforms. This really, really, really brought that home for me, where I really need, I can't just talk about it at this point. It's something that I need, that needs to happen. It needs to happen like yesterday. I've been working on a piece called Aporia, and I've been really hesitant on putting it out there because of the possible backlash on being kicked off of the platform. So you're careful because you're self-censoring, because you know that even whatever it is that you put out, even if you have cited sources, you can get kicked off of the platform, even with cited sources, based off of the new definitions that are coming out right now. And let me give an overview real fast. So I'm gonna switch over to you, Westradamus, and you can let me know whether or not I might be completely off on my take. Give a little counterpoint on where it is I might on why I might be overreacting rather. But here in this thing, we're talking about the DHS, Department of Homeland Security, issues National Terrorism Advisory System Bulletin, or NTAS Bulletin. So in this NTAS bulletin, and this is something, again, I'm not the first person to be, this was actually something was talked about a couple months ago on another YouTube site, where they were talking about, we're getting to that point where we really are almost in a security state, or a almost like what they talk about with China and how China's doing their national firewall, or the Great Firewall. It says the United States remained at a heightened threat environment fueled by several factors. I'm reading this directly from the DHS.gov website, from the DHS issues National Terrorism Advisory System Bulletin, which will be linked in the description below at the end of this broadcast. But it says the United States remains in a heightened threat environment fueled by several factors, including an online environment filled with false or misleading narratives and conspiracy theories and other forms of dis, and malinformation, or what they call MDM. And the other website becomes very important. I'm going to link it to, that I also will link, and I'll point you to in a moment here. But the MDM is going to be defined on this other .gov website. So introduced and or amplified by foreign and domestic threat actors. So now we're talking about terrorism dealing with MDM. It says these threat actors seek to exacerbate societal friction, to sow discord and undermine public trust in government institutions, to encourage unrest, which could potentially inspire acts of violence, mass casualty attacks, and other acts of targeted violence conducted by lone offenders and small groups acting in furtherance of ideological beliefs and or personal grievances, pose an ongoing threat to the nation. So if you come up under this MDM definition, it's possible for you to be alleged to be a terrorist. And that becomes that is so troubling, because now the government can define anybody up under this MDM definition. So what is the MDM definition? Saying that you could be subject to being a terrorist. So here again, this is CISA, Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency. This is another CISA.gov. This is another government website. I am quoting directly from this site. I am not dis or malinformation, although by definition that this might be construed as MDM. So what is MDM, right? So now we're looking at what it is the government defines as dis, or malinformation. Misinformation, disinformation, and malinformation make up what CISA defines as information activities, in quotations, information activities. When this type of content is released by foreign actors, it can be referred to as in foreign influence. Definitions for each are below. So by foreign actors, this could be done, right? This is initially what it's saying. And then when the last paragraph is going to extend that to domestic as well. But let's get into what the misinformation is. Misinformation is false, but not created or shared with the intent of causing harm. So this is not intentional. It's false information, but it's not intended to cause harm. So a terrorist could use misinformation. So a terrorist could accidentally spread without intent, but that's still considered up under that terrorism threat that we talked about on DHS's website. So you don't even need the intent at this point. The mental state doesn't even need to be intentional to be spreading misinformation and be categorized under that terrorism hierarchy that they have on DHS's website. Disinformation is deliberately created to mislead, harm, or manipulate a person, social group, organization, or country. So this is a deliberate. Okay, so this one does have a requisite mental state or mens rea, as they call it in the legal field, but this one has a requisite mental state that you can point to as a. And then malinformation. This is really where it starts to. Malinformation is based on fact, but used out of context to mislead, harm, or manipulate. Who decides what's out of context? So I just read all these things, and by me reading them, who decides what's context or out of context for it? And I'm reading it in its entirety because I don't want anyone to say that I'm reading it out of context. So then it goes, when I made the statement initially about foreign and domestic, here it goes. It says foreign and domestic threat actors. So initially, it talked about in the first one, just foreign actors, and it gave the definition. Now it's foreign and domestic threat actors use MDM campaigns to sow chaos, confusion, and division. These malign actors are seeking to interfere with and undermine our democratic institutions and national cohesiveness. The resources provided in the bottom of this page provide examples and more information about MDM activities. And when it says resources, it's interesting that they actually have graphic novels. This guys, you can talk with your kids about this. Give them, your kids like comic books. Ooh, look, they got graphic novels down here to help your kids. Also available in Spanish, right? So you can sit there and click on these things. And again, look, they actually have graphic novels that are down here to help you to understand and to show you can download these graphic novels for your kid to talk to other people about it, and even with your kids about dis, and malinformation. And this is all on these government websites, these .govs. This is primary source information I'm bringing you directly from what they're saying. This is not me saying it. And again, I'm not the first person to go over these issues, but this is directly on these .gov websites on what it is they're classifying as dis, and malinformation as defined by them. And then in addition to that, how that directly impacts and is related to national terrorism advisory bulletins. So YouTube here recently took the Hill off for a week, and they won't be coming back on for 7 days. And they are a reputable news source that reported CPAC. They got their first 2 strikes because they had literally this is not like I'm sourcing it. I'm waiting for the response to come back, because I don't want to sit there and state emphatically just based off of one source. I need multiple sources in order to say this for sure, that this is the reason why the Hill is off, based off of what one of the reporters from the Hill stated off of YouTube, and why YouTube deplatformed a legitimate news organization. So I'm sorry that I blazed through that really fast, but I want to make sure that I'm not wasting anybody's time here. And I want to also make sure that I get Westradamus. So you heard the whole synopsis on why I'm saying we need to diversify and that we need other platforms besides YouTube. And we need to actually not just have those platforms, we need to start utilizing those platforms. And I'm going to tell you why I want Odyssey as opposed to Rumble or some of the other ones. But do you think I'm way off here in my take on this, and why, as a and in my desire to diversify from not just YouTube but also to other platforms and providing information?
Well, hold on. Well, just in general, um, that is an assault on the First Amendment, and it's overly broad. But knowing how sensitive that the censorship is on YouTube and the censorship um, on other platforms, like Facebook, Instagram, and any other type of platform, like how sensitive it is with fact checkers who are not even fact checking and things like that. You are really on point. And matter of fact, that is a good matter of fact, a good clue just to take in your everyday life, just in business and all that good stuff, I know this might be a little, this is about the topic, but one thing that bothered me today, um, when we're talking about, is kind of towards the aporia, which that will be on Patreon, everybody. So, hey, if y'all want to listen to that, go to Patreon, all right, and listen to it, because I think that might be the only platform that'll actually allow you to put that on. It's like, I was listening to the president, right, and we just spent 2 years of getting the fear out of us, the fear scared out of us about COVID, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh, I don't want to, let's not mention the word.
I mean, I mean,
Let's call it
char.
19 or the situation that just happened. There's a
Yeah, yeah,
reason.
yeah, yeah. The situation 19 that just happened, right?
Yeah.
All right, we just got scared out of the situation 19, right? For the past 2 years. All right, due to this situation, it turned Americans against Americans, families against families. Matter of fact, people got divorced over the stuff. People lost their jobs over the stuff. All right. Matter of fact, you could not come in if you weren't vaccinated. Matter of fact, you had to violate HIPAA to let people know what your status was. And then now, today, now you're dropping the mandates, dropping all this good stuff. Now you're saying that all is well in love and war. And I think it's very hypocritical. Like, it's it that's unfair,
I,
and that's very unfair, and that's very irresponsible. That's you we can talk about everything what the past administration has done, but this ranks, this is actually surpasses that, because of what the past president has done. Like, he never got anybody divorced, actually hit your personal life, hit your personal pocket, you know and you know I you know and so therefore, when today's topic is like, hey, we got to diversify, you know and so I like to encourage everybody. It's like, hey, trying to get that side hustle, go make sure you do it, because if you don't know what the future holds, where another one of these things will happen, right?
mm-hmm.
And then after that, they're gonna try to force us to do something else. Or, matter of fact, what's the next mandate? Because of just like with this MDM, all right, it's trying to narrow the First Amendment for the freedom of press, freedom of speech,
Mm-hmm.
you know, freedom of assembly, um, like, this is yeah, you're narrowly tailoring this, um, just to fit to fit anybody. This is broadly, excuse me, not narrowly tailored, but it's broadly. It's a broad stroke where anybody. It's like, hey, even in good faith, okay, hey, we have a fact, but who says that? Hey, we are determining this fact. we're saying that, hey, this fact is not right or whatnot. Just like with the situation 19, like whenever they said that, hey, we cannot sue the Pfizer and the manufacturers of the situation, right?
Mhm.
Because bad things happen. People like, man, this doesn't make sense.
And by saying it doesn't make sense. Anything and again, there's another YouTuber on here that I love listening to, and it's funny because for him, he's a medical doctor, and he's a researcher in addition to being a medical doctor. He is a researcher in this field. And I'm gonna mention his channel, and I apologize. You know what? I'm kind of hesitant because on his channel, in listening to the information that he presents, he also recognizes that he had to switch over to Rumble and to Odyssey. He's been trying both of them as another area where they can have what he calls his chit chats. He's an Indian guy who has these. He literally goes in depth on how um, uh, this situation is affected, and the actual medical information, and going in depth on the type of stuff that I like to go in depth on, being able to show you what the actual primary source of data and everything that's being collected. And he recognizes that there's certain things that you can say on this platform, and there's other things that you cannot, even though it's factual and it has to deal with the actual data, right? So he cannot. There's certain data points
Wow.
he's not allowed to show, or he recognizes that in showing these data points, just the fact that I can't say what it is I'm talking about, and I have to make an analogy to it, right? I can't say we talk about the situation, one of the things I like to talk to people about, or how I allude to it. I call it Coraline, who just turned 19, is one of the things I used to always have to say whenever I was talking about this online, because it's one of these things where if you ran into Coraline, who just turned 19, she could cause some havoc in your life, right? Some real havoc, and she could actually be detrimental to you, how you're living. And not only can she
Facts.
be detrimental on how you're living, being able to talk about that, what the people have said is it's kind of like being on a job and they recognize, hey, did you deal with Coraline who just turned 19? Yeah, I did. I mean, did she cause any problem in your life? Man, you know what? Here's what I want you to do. I need you to take a vacation. I need to take a vacation. Yeah. And take a vacation to one of these spots. This is the only place that you can take a vacation. What if I take a staycation? What if I just stay at home and I just have a staycation? I took a staycation. I feel really good after I took that staycation. I'm back and I'm ready to go. I don't need to worry about Coraline who just turned 19. Same way sometimes I used to deal with that when I used to deal with her older cousin, right?
Mm-hmm.
But in this case, it's like, well, no, anybody who's dealt with her, y'all got to take a vacation. But what if I don't want to take a vacation? What if I don't want to take that vacation? What if I want to take a vacation someplace else? What if I want to go to the Med? What if I want to go? No. You have to stay here and you have to take this vacation to these locations, and then you'll be okay. But I had a staycation and I'm okay right now. Why am I not as a no? You want to come back to work? You're gonna need to sit up there, or you want to participate in society? You need to take this vacation, and it's the specific ones that we're gonna allow you to take. Some of them you're going to be there for a couple of days on this Club Med type vacation, and others you might be there for only a day or two. So, but you get to pick which one of those out of these two. It is a choice for you, and you're going, well, it's not a choice. I'm okay now, right? I had a staycation. I'm okay now. That doesn't work for us, but I'm okay. And I can sit down with the same doctors that you want me to sit there, and the same psychiatrists or psychologists that'll sit there and assess my mental state and say I'm okay or not okay. And they'll be like, nah, she wrecks enough lives that it might be detrimental for other people around you. But didn't they already take the vacation? Yeah, they took the vacation. So they should,
Mm-hmm.
right? So it's like the fact that I have to talk about it that way, it bothers me. It fundamentally bothers me. And then when I look at what the government is doing, I agree with you. That is an overly broad stretch on the First Amendment. And the fact that you can take that and you can make that terrorism bothers me. And I really wish that at this point we had net neutrality, and that we could also start applying this to what would be state actors or government actors. It depends.
Yes.
Like if YouTube was large enough to be considered, if they actually started classifying these as utilities, right? But they're not, and they're not going to. And then people and we don't recognize that we're getting more and more of our rights pulled away from us, and by having these platforms, and let me expound on why it is, as I've been doing my research and I've been looking up things on Odyssey, on both YouTube and off of YouTube, and looking at how the blockchain works, because it's based off a library. Because it's based off a blockchain, it's a lot harder to censor or to deplatform somebody, because the way the technology works, as opposed to another platform like I don't know, Rumble, where they could, they're more right wing leaning is how most people say it, but they do give you more freedom. It's interesting how this works in these waves, and people will jump onto this platform right now, and then later on that platform will do the exact same things that the previous one was doing, and then everybody will just be like, well, we need another avenue. So I'm looking at it as, now I'm had to go back to my IT roots, and I had to start looking at which one is least likely to be able to deplatform, and is there something that's out there that allows people to actually have these discussions or have these talks in a democratic way, that goes towards the democracy of being able to have, even if you don't agree with somebody's train of thought, you don't agree, if they're showing you the facts, and maybe they might be misinterpreting it, and you want to be able to point them and say, hey, look, that has, you're doing that wrong, or you're not taking into account this, and this. But having that discussion to be able to say it, not being able to have that discussion, and being able to have a legitimate news organization deplatform for 7 days. They didn't even deplatform that FNF, those FNF guys, after they have blatantly violated the terms of YouTube's service agreement, terms of YouTube. They didn't those guys are okay. They're making YouTube, but a legitimate news organization that aired legitimate, another legitimate platform, CPAC. They put CPAC on, and they got deplatformed because of what was on CPAC. Do you realize how boring CPAC is? And someone said, hey, we're going to report CPAC, which is just them in Congress talking. It's being able to actually observe the congressional platform and to be able to actually see what's going on. That got them a strike. This, I mean, it is.
I don't know what else to say, man. Like, you know, and then number two, that's, you know, talk about First Amendment. That's a violation against rights against assembly as well. You know, just assemble with people just to free exchange of ideas and things like that. You know, that's you know, it's crazy. You know, it really is crazy and sickening. Because of, you know, that could easily been a call by like one of the alphabet networks, you know, ABC, NBC, whatever, ran by CIA, you know, because they don't have control of that particular news channel, and this might be like a power play for that, you know. Like, now I'm looking like that is because of, you know, they're independent, you know, that they're not funded by these high powered, you know, Viacoms and things like that, or Disney's, you know, or CIA, i.e. CIA, FBI, RAND type things, you know.
But you can't even talk about, like, it's a conservative political action conference, right? They're having in this boring thing where they're sitting there, and you have all these elected officials and everybody sitting there talking on this platform, and it's like, it's newsworthy. You want to see what it is they're talking about, what it is they're saying, what are the platforms that they're running on, what has a, and it's and then they go like, oh no, you can't talk about that. And that's fundamentally, I'm like, where are we at? Where are we at in the stream where the biggest platform out here, YouTube, is such that you cannot talk about something that's actually newsworthy? It has whether it's conservative action or maybe you have a liberal action committee. Either way, if you report on it and somebody, oh, it's fake news, and it's like, well, it's newsworthy. Let's look at what they're talking about. You can't do that.
That's sad, but now I'm all about fairness, you know. And when we look at the liberal stuff, you know, all that stuff is coming in. You know, like I haven't seen any of the liberal stuff being deplatformed, or I never seen any liberal stuff being censored or anything like that.
I'm gonna go ahead. I apologize. Let me just
no, go ahead.
No, because it's like for me, I look at it, it's not so much liberal or conservative, it's what the talking points are for that platform. So if you were to say something like, oh, I don't know, that we need to have um fair and equitable treatment for, say, this group or that group, all of as a it's like let me give you an example of what I mean by this, because right now there's something that's going on nation, or that's outside of this nation, and somebody's talking about it. I'm waiting to see what's getting ready to happen with them on what just happened to somebody I normally don't agree with, but the point that they made, and I'll share the let me share my screen. I'll show it to you here in a moment. And
Please.
it has a, let me see, let me pull this up.
Oh yeah, and just want to add, since we have some dead space, hey, people, beware of the scams going on here, because you know that they're coming because of people want to set up any type of charitable works because of what's about to go on. So, oh, I'm going to the war or anything like that. So I just want to say, hey, y'all just be aware of the scams, because I've been on 5 of them already. So
Well,
just be careful.
it's funny that you mentioned the scams based off of this war, because one of the things that the thing that I was alluding to is, and I see, let's see, D Honey has a comment here. Your opinion doesn't change facts, but facts should change your opinion. I agree with that.
Facts.
And fairness is relative. I agree with that as well. I say each of us has a definition of what we consider fair, but overall, you can come up as you can see certain things that are just, while you might not be able to define fairness, you can definitely define unfairness for the most part. That being said, so if you look at what's on my screen right now, or what me sharing the screen, there is a um, on YouTube right now, and I'm waiting to see if they get deplatformed for this statement here. Mark Lamont has a Mark Lamont Hill has honest support about Ukraine crisis. And as I listened to this, and I don't think he went far enough with it, but hey, where he went, I definitely agree with it, because within the same week that everybody's sitting there, they're jumping on board for this Ukraine thing. He pointed out several other things that have been going on in the news at the same time with other nations that's the exact same thing, and nobody's decrying these because they aren't in Ukraine. At the same time, I didn't think he went far enough, because one of the things that I wanted him to talk about, I was hoping he was going to talk about, is the level of bigotry and prejudice that's being advocated in the Ukraine against people from
Mm.
African nations, right? So I was hoping he went there. He didn't. He did what he normally does do, but in that regard, for me, when I looked at it, I'm looking to see. Okay, so here's a talking point that and there's a lot of people who, and once I talked about, I noted that who was it, DL Hughley talked about it before I did, because I went back to see who else talked about it after I spoke about it about a week or so ago, and to see who else is talking about these things. And there's only sound bites or snippets, and nobody's really pointing out the fact that there is this huge level of disparity.
Inequity.
Yeah, a huge inequity or disparity in how these things are being discussed, how these things are coming about, who's talking about it, who's not talking about it. Are you allowed to talk about it? Are you allowed to discuss these things? Are these things aspects that you or I, as citizens on a platform, are we able to sit there and talk about these things genuinely, right? And the reality is, the more and more I look at this, the more and more I observe it, the more I recognize, or the more it seems that you can't talk about these subjects. You can't talk about what's going on in the Ukraine, not in a legitimate way that doesn't get censored in that way. And I guess I'm gonna segue into something while I'm talking about this, because it goes along with it. I wanted to do a whole show. I'm not saying I wanted to do. I'm gonna do a whole show on this. It's gonna be tomorrow. I want to talk about us as Black men supporting one another, right? Because one of the things on being deplatformed, or the ability to be deplatformed, and the ability for them to take action, and whether they're the way that big business and the way the government is able to take action against us, is because we don't support one another. I look at what just
Facts.
yeah, I look at what just happened with this guy. He's a YouTuber called MTR, and O'Shea Duke Jackson. He covered it, so I'm not going to sit there and go too far in depth on it. But MTR he lost a sponsorship from Keeps, and for me, at that point, if Keeps pulled it off because of somebody who didn't like what he had to say, complained and Keep said, okay, well, we can't allow you to sponsor our stuff anymore. I think that we as black men should say, okay, well, none of us will be using Keeps. And if everybody banded together and said, okay, based off of the fact that if you feel that you're able to deplatform someone within that space, or someone who is relatively even keeled, or because somebody else has something to say about it, somebody who's outside of the space comes in and says something about them, the same way it would be for the alphabet groups that are out there. And I'm not going to say, because I've been warned before, don't mention that. So I'm going to try and not mention them by name. The other group that got other people in trouble, Dave Chappelle. If those groups are able to sit down and to leverage pressure, right? You can look at things like in the UFC where Dana White will not. You can tell who's able to leverage the pressure to make advertisers bend towards their will. And if they can make the advertisers bend towards their will, then in turn, they're able to affect change in corporate, in corporate America. They're able to affect change in the government because you can't say certain words or that other word uh, that you the same way that they can put the other word, the N word that they say. And I'm being very politically correct because I know right now today I am treading on some ground that is very likely to get me deplatformed, depending on who might complain if they see this. So if you're able to say certain words and the other words you can't say, and if you do say that word, then even Dana White, who's everybody goes, "Ooh, he's a straight shooter. He won't, and nothing gets to him." There are certain groups that you can't broach a subject because he knows advertising dollars are at stake, and because he worships that almighty dollar, he's not going to mess with his advertising money. And the groups around him, or the people who are over him, they will also his business partners will make sure, those advertisers will make sure that he feels the pain on that as well. So it's something is for us as a group, as black men, we need to be able to come together and we need to quit bickering among ourselves, and we need to begin supporting each other. That if you have places out there that you might have, such as I'm using the Keeps as the example. If you have something like a Keeps, and Keeps goes in there and they say that, hey, we're not going to support certain individuals, then within the community, even if you don't totally agree with that individual, for me, I'm going, okay, I don't have to agree with everything he says, but he's within the community. I'm not supporting Keeps. I will not. I don't want Keeps money. I don't want to deal with anything that has to do with Keeps, and I hope that whoever their competitors are comes along and does a better job than they do, and if they're there, then we'll support them as opposed to supporting Keeps. And I think that's something we need to get better at as brothers, to help because they know that they can do that with sisters. They know that the sisters are out there, that they spend a lot more money. We need to sit there and start voting with our dollars, both in corporate America and within the government. And we need to really, really start supporting one another.
Facts.
So yeah, and I'm gonna do a whole. I'll be honest with you, I'm gonna do a whole thing on this, but
Yeah, like see, you have to understand that since our community, like we have turned into a matriarchy, right?
mm-hmm,
And you have to understand that a lot of women are, in my opinion, are in a cyclical cycle, right? They're as soon as they get what people are saying that what they want, right? They point back down and say, "Well, I want to be back single again. I got my family, kids, all this other good stuff." And after that, they see a girl being single, and then say, "Well, I want to be single again." So therefore, they leave their family, and then the single girl so they're always in a cyclical cycle, right? Or at least the secular ones, right?
mm-hmm,
And um, thus we have been damaged, as a community, because we need our women. But men, we still have a code that we have not broken, that's been unbroken since the dawn of time. We always, every man is always off respect. And then number two, with each man, we always have a low level threat of violence in between each other. So therefore, hey, if one of us want to step, hey, you want to start getting over here in the disrespect, okay, you already know what's going to happen. Something's going to happen. So with that, you know, and knowing, and especially being uh, of color, you know, we are actually judged upon the merits of another. Period. So there's been plenty of times where, I don't know about you, Savior, but I know I have. I walked into a room uh, full of um, full of people who don't look like me, and they want me to rap, act, or entertain them. Say, oh, you're well spoken. Oh, you do this. Oh, you do that. Oh, I can't believe that. I'm surprised. You don't rap, or hey, you just play football or play basketball, or do the normal entertaining things.
Right.
And with that, and with that, we have already been judged by somebody else representation of ourselves, and and that's the reason why it's even more important that we do support each other and support our dreams. And even though that things may not be working like we want them today, if we all stand up together, the game is over.
Yeah.
And that's what Dr. King did in the '60s. So, hey, with the Montgomery bus boycott, say, hey, we ain't none of us doing it. And after that, they crippled Montgomery economy to its knees. So therefore, they had to come to him. It's like, hey, what we got to do to get y'all on the buses? You know. So, so if we were to do that, um, hey, a whole bunch of leaders such as yourself, O'Shea Duke Jackson, and matter of fact, get all the lower level, lower to mid level ones, and then hopefully, then after that, we get the heavyweights to come on, like Kevin Samuels. Then after that, then everybody can be on code.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's you mentioned several things that are important. Let me read this real fast, and I want to say thank you to Last Call for Insight. He says the presentation of your office setup is looking good as always. Thank you very much, brother. I appreciate that. Really try to make sure I make sure the production quality is good as always for every one of these things. I really have try to clean up that production value for every single one of these. That being said, I want to get back to us supporting one another because you mentioned several things. You touched on the subject of our women, the Montgomery bus boycott, and I'm gonna dispel one. I don't think I'm a leader at all in any space, but and I don't. I'll be honest with you. My goal is that I don't want to be a leader in the fact of telling people what to do. I would love to be someone that helps to bring us together to help us coordinate. That I would love to do. All right, as a community, as a group, as brothers, as a powerful, strong brothers like yourself. I had Sean McLaughlin, who's an attorney here in Houston, Texas. I had him on the other day. Um, and one of the things I wanted to like that bus boycott, I think we need to really get it in our heads. That was not an overnight success. That was not an overnight success. And I'm gonna say it one more time. That was not an overnight success. The Montgomery bus boycott was something just like the lunch counter sit-ins that took time. It took them over 13 months in order to affect the change that they were trying to do. So
Mm.
that meant that there was over 13 months of them not riding a bus and supporting one another and getting them to getting them to work and getting and circumventing that has the bus system in Montgomery, supporting one another and dealing with one another in Montgomery. Again, that was not an overnight success. We need to quit and get our minds out of this microwave mentality that we need it overnight. We need to get more of a crock pot mentality of understanding you're gonna be uncomfortable. It's not gonna be easy. It's gonna be a grind. It's gonna be a long haul, and we need to manage our expectations. It's gonna be a long grind. And I appreciate something that you said in there when you were talking about it. You talked about our women and that we need to get our women on board, right? Because we need, as men and women, black in our black community, we need to get on board with one another. And they recognize there's a financial benefit definitively on how the system works, on how our black women's dollars spend. They spend more money than we do. That is, I'll pull up those statistics from the CDC and from Black infographic. I mean, Black demographics infographics. Black. I'm thinking about it as an infographic in my head from an ArcGIS thing. Anyway, we need to be able to figure out a way on how do we get as a. I love the fact that, like you mentioned, leaders like Kevin Samuels starting these conversations that we're having within the community. And I love the fact that those conversations have started. I love the fact that we're having those conversations, but I want us to get from the fact of, or from the aspect of just talking about it to actually having some actions, of recognizing that yes, that there's values that we bring, that each party brings. And like I say, the networking aspect, the ability to support is something that our women do well, and understanding that being able to get that support system, that networking group of being able to support one another, as a black women support each other. And you go, girl, don't worry about the fact that you overweight. Don't worry about things that they probably shouldn't be supporting, but they'll support each other in these negative aspects if we can get them to start supporting the community in that same way. Because back, you mentioned the 60s, whether it was the NOI, Nation of Islam, or whether it was the Black Panther Party, or whether it was Slick or SNCC or any of those other groups that were there, black men and black women were supporting each other and holding those rights that we were trying to seek out in whichever lane that we were in. They were there and they were supporting. And we need to get back to the point where we're supporting each other. And how do we get to that point? So right now we're having the discussions. I love the fact that we're having those discussions, but I want to get to the point of what we're going to do about it. Right. So we
Uh,
recognize it's an issue. What are we
my
going
my thing is like I would like to see the reduction of government benefits, especially housing. Because there's been multiple times where we see our women talk about, oh, I'm living my best life, but they're on housing. All I gotta do is pay $50 a month. And after that, they go travel, go do whatever, or they'll never marry because they always have to consistently have kids. And plus with housing, you can't have a man in, so therefore now they're incentivized to be single. So we need to start removing the incentives of the allure of being single. Like as in, hey, we need to start passing legislation. Like, hey, hey, housing, get them up off there. Um, so therefore, like they're just not, because that's one of the reasons why our families are not together, because they're being incentivized. So if we take away the incentivization of uh of it, then we have a chance of staying together. Because of reason why they say, hey, I don't need no man, is because you got the man behind you.
You got uncle with you.
Yeah, you got Uncle Sam. Uncle Sam is right with you, paying your bills, make sure everything is good. But hey, if Uncle Sam is not there, and then on top of that, you got to walk the streets. On top of that, okay, you're gonna seek protection, and it's gonna have to be in a man. It doesn't have to be necessarily. I'm not doing like the Umar things, like hey, love who you love and all this other good stuff. But don't put down anybody if they're not your preference, or bastardize anybody if they're not your preference. Um, but yeah, we just need to just go towards that, and then after that, we need to start shutting down all this negative talk, of about each other.
Yeah.
Like, hey, um, why do we have YouTube channels of black men just talking negatively about black women, and the vice versa? Like, I never got that. Like, why are we talking at each other and then talking to each other?
Yeah.
So, like, why can we not just get a round table together, so therefore we start hashing out the issues?
I've seen several of them where they do have the round table, and I agree with a lot of what you stated. There was one thing that I wanted to, I guess, a counterpoint to what it was that you stated with the incentives. So when it comes to the incentivation, I think that it goes deeper, or there's other layers to it as well. So you have a layer where in the legal system and for me in my head, I'll be honest with you, this is what I'm looking at. I'm looking at the incentive that they incentivize us to break up the family, right?
Yes.
And what I mean by that is we put a value on kids, right? So that now you have mothers intentionally making statements about fathers that they know that are not true, right?
Facts.
So that you intentionally are doing things that you know are not true, but you know you need to say them in order to get um, support from the government. So you're gonna and you're doing that so if it was assumed or presumed to be 50-50 custody and that you weren't going to get any money out of this, would you be fighting as hard and saying these things about the father when you're trying to leave? One. Two, when you talk about the government programs, why is it that we are the only ones when they're doing these government programs? The Black community is the only community where you must not have a man in the household in order to reap the benefits of the program.
Facts.
Right. So when I think about those programs, I'm not even mad about the fact, okay, if you recognize there's a need, that you need to have some kind of public assistance or whatever, great. But why is one of the prerequisites in order for you to have that? Why is one of the prerequisites in order for you to get that you must not have a man in the household? You have kids with a man, but you cannot have a man in the household in order to receive the benefits of any kind of say government assistance. So if you recognize that there's a disparity, and you see that there's a disparity and there's a reason why the family probably would need some kind of assistance to get there. And I'm gonna give you an anecdotal example in a moment here. Let me read this comment here. Gospel News gave me a T. I didn't know what that was, so I didn't
Hey, shout out to Gospel News though. Hey man, good dude.
Yeah. I said, then you got Andre Shabazz. He says, would you rather them all be homeless? Because some of them will not live life like you think. I agree. I say, and my point is, I don't want nobody homeless. I don't want to sit there and perpetuate, because there are certain things that we've been doing in society, and I want to have this discussion where we can actually start talking about what these actual issues are, because they are making it so it's a prerequisite that you pull men out of the household. It's a prerequisite. I apologize for that hitting the mic. It's a prerequisite that as we go through the legal system, when you're dissolving the family, that you must make these statements about the man, that you must put the man down, that you must make sure that the man is placed in certain categories or certain things, so that you, as a domestic violence being one of them, so that you can get a disproportionate share of the marital estate, right? And I see that as in many of the SAPs, when we're talking about custody or division of property and wanting a disproportionate share of the marital estate, where these things is consistent that they're alleged within the system. It is consistent every single time. And how do we get around it? And what is the legislation that needs to change? I think 50-50 custody would be one of them. Would be something that I agree with something else that Kevin Samuel said, that there should not be a no-fault divorce. There should not be a no-fault divorce. I'll say it again. Yes. There should not be a no-fault divorce. 50-50 custody must be consistent. 50-50 custody must be that should be the norm. That should be the standard. And there should be no-fault divorce. No. You enter into this contract, any other contract that you want to get out of. If one party wants out and the other party doesn't, if it's not mutual from both parties, there must be somebody
or breach.
Exactly. There must be a breach. There must be a breach of the contract in order to get out. And if you have no breach of the contract, it should be something where you must be able to show what was done in order to get out of contract, or you're breaching the contract and you walk away with nothing. That should be presumed in that contract, right? That if you're getting out of it, there should never be irreconcilable differences where out on one party. If both parties agree and there's no kids, great. But kids, to me, have a vested interest. And we talked about third party beneficiaries. And when does their interest vest? The moment the kids come into that marriage, they have a vested interest in that contract. And go ahead. I'm sorry.
I just want to just throw this thing in there. Have you noticed there's a correlation between when the family was incentivized to break up and then our home ownership rates? And our show is all about diversification and things like that. And I think one of the best diversifications is possibly being in a marriage, because it not only, let's say if your wife does work and things like that, now you have another income. And then after that, hey, let's say you'll get yourself a nice little multifamily. Now you have more income coming in, and then now that's how you're able to get up off the system, the monopoly system that they have here. You know, also, um, when we're talking about government systems and things like that, is just you know, this is how it's designed. And of course, we can talk about, hey, this what needs to happen until we're all blue in the face. But the question is, what is the workaround on this? How can we work through this? How can we incentivize the women to stay with us? And that's the questions. That's the true question I would like to know. And then when it comes down to like this free speech, like going back to the topic, um, how can we protect this? Because sooner or later, okay, I think we're all being pushed instead of talking about like we can talk about the whole gambit. We can't even talk about the whole gambit. It's like, hey, it's like a form of placism. It's like, okay, here, y'all can talk about this, but y'all can't talk about this, right? And it's been permeated through our women because of like, hey, we can talk about gossip, right? And we can talk about each other, and that will get all the views you want. But when it's talk about, hey, let's try to stay together, or hey, let's try to figure out a way where where we can change the system, nobody wants to talk about that. They just want
They,
to talk about the drama.
they don't want to say. So I agree with you on all of it. Now,
It's like programming, like we're robots now.
let me read two of these comments, and I'm gonna say. So I got Gospel News says these are written laws that are written as they're written in the 60s and 70s. I'm gonna come back to that in a second here. I'm gonna share my screen here in a moment. And then there is it is because you are not. I mean, you are to not recognize that you are a nation within a nation. They are not going to enable you. It is to keep you from I mean functional so that you can maintain control over this nation that is in. Okay, so I think I kind of
Agreed.
I think I understand exactly what you're saying there. Gospel News. I say there's a book that came out. There's several books I always recommend to people, but let me share my screen here real fast because there is let me pull this up. As a when you start talking about the land aspect of it and making sure that we have property and things along those lines and the design of it. Let me see. Where am I at? Not that, not that. There we go. There. This book here, and I don't know if you're able to see it, it's called The Color of Law. It was written by a Jewish guy by the name of Richard Rothstein. And he talks about something that everybody kind of they gloss over. It was a Supreme Court decision where they said that segregation in the United States is de facto segregation. And let me give clarity on two things he's talking about. There's de facto and there's de jure, right? So de facto is one that's the people just chose it; it just happened that way, and then de jure is there's laws that went into making it this way. And when he goes into talking about it, and he had some interviews with Ta-Nehisi Coates as well, where he talks about the fact that, and not even talks about the facts. He goes through and he pulls up all of the records from the past till now, right? And he uses certain locations, such as like in Chicago and places in California, and he points out how the housing laws were structured in those times, from public assistance that was given to white people, and then they started subsidizing home ownership in the suburbs, and they started pushing white people there so they can have home ownership and that they can start building generational wealth,
Mm,
based off the equity of the homes they had, blah blah blah, blah, and how these opportunities were denied to us as black people. And
facts.
when you read this book, The Color of Law, and it says a forgotten history of how the government segregated America, I will say it is a buried history. It's intentionally buried. It's not forgotten. That history is there and it is buried. It is intended not to for you not to know exactly how it is. The government has structured it in such a way for you not to be able to get it. Right. The government has structured has a like we keep talking about it and we as a and to acknowledge it, like I said, in the spheres that we're in, I know and this is something I spoke about before. If I want this channel to be really successful and make a lot of money, I know that there's things I can talk about. Like you talked about the entertainment aspect of it, the putting other people down. I can I can look at something that somebody else has talked about, and I can hop on and I can say something really derogatory about it, and I can just tag them in it, and then make sure that I put that in the description, and then I can link to theirs, and I can make sure that it comes back, and that I can get, put a at this individual, at that individual in here, and I will begin to get views. It will happen. It will happen organically, and YouTube will pick it up if I just start bad mouthing and and downgrading brothers and sisters out there. And that's what feeds. That's what the algorithm is going to feed that to them, and then they're going to watch it, and then they're going to sit there. They're going to engage, and the trolls will get in, and it's all publicity is good publicity at that point if you're looking at it from that perspective. Let's see. Why do you think let me see. I'm sorry. I apologize. I jumped into it and didn't even say what I was getting ready to do. So Gospel News says, why do you think the enemy is going to help you? That's what I'm talking. That's what I'm talking. Thanks. And that's one, as I agree, they're not helping. They has a red line.
They're going to help you destroy everything.
Exactly. It's called redlining, and it's still functioning. I agree with that. It says they will censor you. I experience it all the time on YouTube. I agree. I said this. If you were here from the beginning, that's one of the things I've talked about is I have to be careful what it is I say and how I say it on YouTube. But the redlining aspect, one of the things that Westradamus here, he pointed out, and he talked about it the other day as well. So he pointed out earlier, he alluded to it, but he and I offline, we talked about the fact of placism. So going back to what you're talking about as far as where they put us and where they place us. I like that terminology of placism. Placism, because it goes to the caste society that we live in. We don't talk about the fact that we're in a caste society, that if you are in the legal field, that there's certain people that you need to talk to in order to get certain jobs that are going to pay you more money. And there's certain, they start stratifying what you can do based off of where you're at. If you're whatever field that you're in, whatever thing that you're doing, they stratify it in such a way that this is what you need to do if you want to make X amount of dollars. If you want to do well, like I said, I know and I recognize. And again, I plug everybody else when they come on. I forgot to plug myself. If you like what it is we're doing here, give us a like, comment, and subscribe. Help us share this out. Again, I'm going to be diversifying, as we talked about earlier, between here and Odyssey, and I'm going to ask that you guys share all this information out there, right? If you like what we're doing, if you like us being able to talk as free black men, help us support one another. That it doesn't have to be somebody else, such as the YouTube algorithm, supporting us. That we can support one another as well. That being said, it's a lot of different things that are out there that goes towards like what Westradamus pointed out on them helping us and whatever they have a place for us, and trying to see how it is that we can make that change. I'm trying in my limited ability here on making sure that we have a platform in order to talk about it. But one of the things I really do want to go over, and I guess if you like black people like I like black people, and everybody here, I'm sure that everybody here loves black people like I love black people, love black men like I love black men. No homo, obviously, but sometimes I guess you got to say that. But if you love black men like I love black men, I'm a black man myself. So I love to see us succeed. And one of the things that I'm looking into right now, and it was based off of a discussion that we had the last time here, Westradamus, on looking into the various infrastructures that we have within the community and how it is that we can start utilizing those to help push making sure our communities are better, right? How do we get that engagement within the communities? Because I think that, again, they're not going to help us to do it. They've designed a system that's intended to make sure that we suffer and to make sure that we don't support one another, that we are suffering and continue to do this cycle of suffering, and that we continue to self-perpetuate ourselves. We have to do less work to do it.
Savior,
yes,
look this up. This this really made my day. See if you're able to pull this up online, and therefore you can show the story. There was a story about a church who threw out a member because she was divorcing her husband for a no fault whatsoever and returned her $500 check. Oh, yeah. See, that is the type of accountability that I'm talking about. That the church is not going to just take your money. And if we have leaders like that in our community, you know, hey, this is what's acceptable and this is what is not acceptable.
I
And
agree.
and this is about our groups that we actually are tapped into.
Yes.
This can actually turn the tide right here. Because a lot of people, okay, we've been conditioned to go against Nation of Islam, Farrakhan, things like that. Okay, that's fine. All right, a lot of people are now being programmed against the church. Okay, but when we have stories like that, where the church itself, the pastor, they stand up and say, "Hey, this is not good behavior." Matter of fact, we are concerned that you are posting indecent photos. All right, and we're trying to reach out to you and try to talk to you, and now you're divorcing your husband, and your husband is very troubled behind it, and he's not cheating, he's not doing nothing else wrong, you know. And I think, and another thing, what I think it is I think it's a sickness of social media. You see something, you want it, just like and I think social media is just nothing but a big lie.
It
because
is.
uh, because like you're talking about people on Instagram. Okay, half those people flex on Instagram. They don't have that. They're scamming. You know, more than more than probably about 80-90% are scamming. So, and then after that, like, what sense does that make if all you see is somebody living their best life? Like, hey man, we're all humans. Like, hey, we have our highs or lows, and then after that, you're showing 12 months of you just living high and stuff like that, and then after that, you look at it and you look at yourself. I was like, man, people are crazy.
Do me a favor, if you can find that article, if you can send it to me. I'm trying to Google it and I'm not able to find. I have a church throughout women for divorcing husbands, but whenever you get an opportunity, and I might do a
Oh
show on
yeah,
it. But it go what you're talking about goes to our value system, right? It goes to our value system and where it is, what values we're being taught within society. So as a community, as a culture, we're being taught that you value money over everything else. The only thing that's important is money. There's no value to keeping a family together. That's if you can keep your family, there's no value to how you raise your children, right? There's no value to keeping the community strong. There's no value to any of those things. The only value is money. And if it makes money, like you talk about all the stuff on Instagram, if it makes you happy, right? You chase happiness, you chase money. If you can get those things, everything else is okay. That's our value system that we have in the society. It is not about your family. There's no, as a everything is based off of how you feel. Me, I. How what's in this for me? What am I getting out of this? And the more that we do that, the more that we continue to go through that process, it's it's we as a the next generation that's what they're going to value. They're going to look on Instagram, they're going to look on any social media website, and it's going to reinforce that train of thought for them. And the only thing that matters for them, the only thing that they value is the money. And it's and it's not even saying that money's not important. It's the valuation where it is the supreme important thing. It is the only thing that they have that is actually valuable to them. Everything else flows by the wayside. Money becomes the thing that they value and the only thing that they value. And I guess we're over an hour because I just lost Westradamus. So I guess what that means is I need to sit down and to uh, wrap this up. Let me read these last two comments down here before I do that. Let's say it really depends on the pursuit of, if you're chasing money, then I guess that's what you have to hold on to. I agree. I definitely agree with that gospel news. And this last comment, but I'm trying to figure out where we're going with this. I mean, with that, as we know, religion is a decree of man, and there's nothing to do with the word. I agree. I agree with that as well. So how do we get out of this? How do we get to where we need to go? I say I really am trying to get something where we have an action item, right? Instead of just talking about it ad nauseum, let's do this. And then instead of talking about that, let's do that. And so I guess what I'm asking for, and I say, once I get a little more fleshed out, I've been working on it over the weekend. One of the things I really want to do, I want to be able to get some action items on what it is we can do as a community, right? Whether it's something that we can do online as a get together, just to see where we're at as far as numbers, and then sit there see if we can push that forward. Because I'm really tired of us talking about all the issues and not doing anything about it. I would love for us as a community to get together and say, okay, here's some actions we can take, whether they're political actions in a political action type committee. I'd be okay with that. Whether they're actions that we take at a grassroots level within the community, I would be okay with that as well. But just having things that we can do is something that's important to me. Let's see. Andre Sabah says, we as a people have to understand not everyone that will work with us will agree with everything that we say. I say, if I go to church and I have to accept what you believe the Bible says, right? So this is one of those things. I talked about this briefly before, and one of the things, and this is going to your point, if you go back and you look at how they derailed uh, the civil rights movement back in the past, one of the things they did, and you go back and you can look at the notes and the memoirs of J. Edgar Hoover. Go back and look at it. He made sure that he sowed dissension within the groups. So whether it's the Black Panther Party, he made sure we had the movie about Jesus, Judas and the Black Messiah. You look at what happened with King and in his group. You look at the dissension within the Nation of Islam. Each and every single group, and then even with Malik Shabazz, Malcolm X, I love but even within those groups, every single time something like that happened, they made sure that they sowed dissension and that we worked against each other. And so you had three different methods of tactics on how to get to the goal or how to achieve the strategy, which was the upliftment of Black people. And we as brothers and sisters, we need to stop fighting each other over the tactics. If you want to do it the Black Panther way, and and that's how you're going about doing it, great. If you want to do it the way that King did with the nonviolent way, great. If you want to do it the way with the NOI and you're going through the Quran, great. So whether it's the Bible, the Quran, or whatever, however it is that you're doing it within, is holding you accountable within that group. So if you're within that group, you can't say, "Oh, I'm a Christian," but then you live like a heathen, right? Can't say I'm a Muslim and you live like a heathen. If you're a heathen, then live like a heathen, right? Don't make claims that you're going to be aligned with these groups and this group thought, and then you don't do it, right? That's where, for me, the hypocrisy and not being held into account on what it is that you said, not somebody else said, what you said on how it is that you want to go about doing these things. That's one thing. And then the second part going along with that is, while I acknowledge your ability to do whatever it is that you want to do, don't come in and come destroy the group. That's the other aspect of that. So so long as whatever it is you're doing is not destroying the group, don't care. That's you living your life and living your life the way that you want to. I have no issues with it. I've had many discussions with family members as well about drugs and alcohol and all that other stuff. However, and whatever it is that you want to do with your consciousness, I have no say on that. I don't care. Zero zip zilch. If you want to sit there, I don't have to have a front row seat to how a person wants to go about doing whatever it is they're doing within their life. If there's a victimless crime, I always laugh about, like, even with prostitution. If somebody I don't have to partake. I don't partake in prostitution. I don't partake in drugs. I do drink, but this whole deal of this higher than nobility or morality, where you're dictating to others what it is they can do with their own consciousness, with their own bodies. I'm not going to tell you what you can do. What I will tell you is that within the group or within the community, don't come in and harm kids. I will tell you that you don't come in, and if you have your family and your family's intact, don't sit there and destroy your family. And that's not just for us as men. I'm saying that for both men and women. Don't destroy you. That is the core group of our communities, of keeping us strong, are our families, right? And there's things that you can do that intentionally does it, and then that's the discussion that we need to have within the families, right? I think that we don't have those discussions enough within our families. I think that we're very divisive in families in the Black community as a whole, right? But I agree with you that holding everybody to a standard that is unrealistic is not beneficial. It's just reading in the Bible. One of the things, like, I think about the Lion of Judah, and people talking about, like, even with prostitution. You look at his daughter-in-law that he had, where he had his first son who was the Bible talks about him being a good for nothing man, and the guy killed him. And then his second son was supposed to do brother-in-law marriage with her so she can have a baby, because at that time, having a son or having a child was an extremely high thing within their society. And he went off and he showing his pullout game was strong, dog. But anyway, he was sit there, he pulled out and then got in and killed. And then he was supposed to sit there and give his third son to him, but he was worried that his third son, his last son he had, was going to die also. So he didn't want to do that. And so then she went off and she prostituted herself and dressed up like a whore in order to make sure he kept his end of the bargain. What's the point behind all that? The point is, sometimes we have an idea of morality in our heads that we've been burned into us by the church or other people, and then you read the book, and that morality might not be exactly what you thought it was. That's just saying. But that being said, let's see. I want to read this last comment. It's like, that's like they're trying to make Satan act right. I agree. You live in a capitalist society. I say one of the things I want to talk about in diversification, and I had to switch it up, was dealing with Cuba, but I'll come back to that. That is what society here in America is based on, money. It is. It's not. I'm okay with you having money or a system of exchange, and it involves money, right? There's no issues with that. It is where you place the importance of money. It's where you take the importance of money. It's where you place the importance of money as the supreme thing within society. This capitalist society that we live in, money is a supreme thing, and that is fundamentally an issue. Let's see what do I have here. I got one more. Back. All right, let me get you back in here, Western Johnson. I apologize about that. All right, I seen that you text me. I was getting ready to log off here and get us going. But yeah, I was just talking about just where we're at in the stream of time as far as trying to figure out how to facilitate and what needs to happen in order for us to facilitate a group solution. Something that everybody can jump onto and say, hey, these are solutions that we need to have. I'm not sure how to go about doing it just yet. I'm exploring certain things, but I don't know. What do you?
I think it has to be like on a micro level first. All right. And then we can move to a macro level.
I agree.
First is like it's just like if you study the story of Donald Trump, right? You know, he went bankrupt multiple times, right?
The previous administration's head executive. Yes, I'm careful on what we hear. Okay, go ahead.
Oh no problem. No. We're talking things that has occurred, and we're not taking anything out of context.
Yeah, I get you.
Okay. He had a group of friends, right?
Uh-huh.
Whenever he went bankrupt, okay, nobody lent him money or anything like that, right? But he had a network that he built up where he just went to his network for the money.
Correct.
All right. And you know, a lot of us black men, we're lone wolves because of a circumstance. Two, our living situation makes us lone wolves. You know, it's so many things, you know, and we always talk about, hey, our feelings don't matter, and our accomplishments, you know, don't matter. Even the simple ones, like, hey, man, you just did 10 years. Okay. Hey, you've been 5 years out. Or, hey, man, you're addicted to drugs and now you're clean. You know, that stuff needs to be clapped up. You know, that's what being a man is about, you know? And so what we need to do is we need to start aligning yourself Like, hey, start building networks. Like, hey, man, let's hang out. One thing that happened to me is that changed my life. Guy named Terrence Glenn. My network with him actually saved my life. He really saved my life. Just by that network with him.
Mm.
You know, um, and I still keep in contact with him even to this day. You know,
Sorry about that.
so no, I keep on. No, sorry about that. No, that
No, no,
man, like,
I burped. I apologize. I burped right in.
I'm about to say, like, that man gave me an opportunity. He gave me a job opportunity. He handed it to me on a platter because if he already got there and that he paid the way for me to get it, just walk in there and get it. And that no ego thing has to be about it because hey, when you bring people that um and we connect and we get that connection, you already know that when 4 or 5 black men, whenever we walk in and we vibe and doing all this other good stuff, we put everybody else on notice.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's the reason why they have to give it a name or call us a name that's something that's lesser than what we are. Oh, there, look at those gang of thugs over there, or whatnot, and so, hey, these are intelligent people here, you know, and that's one of the things that I'm I'm so thankful. One of the things I'm most thankful for is just my relationship with you, Miss Savior. Just meeting you in law school, and how we're just vibing. We're on
Mm-hmm.
the same wavelength, same thoughts. Like, man, something has to happen. You know, then if not me, then who? And we raise our hands up and say, hey, it's us. We have to be that change.
Yeah.
And that's where it's going to start. Just like mind your relationship. Okay, bring another person in. Bring Sean in. Bring whoever else in. All right. Well, here we're gonna do business with each other. So,
That's
hey, whatever we
smack.
need to do, we're gonna do business with each other. All right, and then, hey, we'll bring somebody else in that, hey, they gotta be on code, gotta be on the same level. So therefore, if they're not on code, they have to go, and they will be excommunicated.
Yeah.
So therefore, we're gonna have to develop a code of honor, and then so therefore, hey, if you go against the code or go against the likelihood of the group, you have to go.
Yeah. Well, that's the accountability aspect of it. And let me catch these two. As a so, Lion of Judah is Christ, not Judah. I agree with that. You know what? I realized what you just did for me. I appreciate that. You held me accountable because I did not express that. I'm sorry because I didn't express it accurately. I mentioned Lion of Judah, and I was referring to Lion of Judah as in Christ is referred to as the Lion of Judah, and then you look at what Judah actually did, right? Judah was the guy who went in there and he had he solicited prostitution from his daughter-in-law. But and the Bible speaks of him favorably in calling Jesus the Lion of Judah. Okay, I apologize. I did not expound on that. I apologize for that gospel news. Thanks for holding me accountable on that. And this last one here is fear of the power that be is not a good sign. I agree with that as well. And and going to your point that you also made here, Wester Thomas, many times I look back on my life and I was blessed in that I had a lot of very strong black role models that have been in front of me. I was blessed with the father that I had, but he was not so egotistical as to say that it was just him and only him. As a matter of fact, one of the things he told me was that sometimes other men are going to tell you things that are going to hurt his feelings. He said, because I'll get it from them, even though it's the exact same thing he told me. And I use that today, even when dealing with my own son. And that I know that he's going to get certain things from other men. Like one of the things when I moved out of the home and I moved into the YMCA, when I moved away from California down to Texas, and there was quite a few men in there. There's that whole thing about YMCA about being a bunch of it was a bunch of black men that were in there that had fallen down and were getting back up. And it was interesting that they all several of them were going through divorce, and the wife had taken just about everything and they needed a place to restart. So they stayed at the YMCA where I was at trying to get into school at the time. This is back in the 90s. I'm trying to go into college. And I was right next to there, and they had a bunch of black men there. And I want to name them all by name, but I don't want to miss anybody. But one of them there as a who just took me under his wing and was like, "Look, what are you trying to do?" And I was like, "Yeah, I think I'm gonna do it this way." He was like, "That's not." He was like, "I'm not gonna tell you how to do it." He's out, and he let me go bump my head and go try it my way. And then once he got seeing I was tired, he said, "Are you tired of bumping your head? Do you actually need something?" I was like, "Yeah." He said, "Come on," and took me under his wing, and he made sure that I was taken care of. And it wasn't anything prestigious, but he looked at a young black man trying and was like, "Got you, brother. Let's go." Right. And I appreciate him for that. And then there was other men that were there that did the exact same thing, but in different areas. One has a so he did it with job, he did it with trying to help me to sit there and see different things. He was like, because he had a family of four, he was telling me about where the pitfalls were at, even though I made some of the same mistakes. So I apologize to him for that. But he explained to me where all these pitfalls were at that he encountered and made sure that he, passed along the knowledge and didn't just keep it to himself. And even though I made some of those same mistakes, but it was just the fact that you have had black men like that in my life, similar to what you're talking about, of us being able to reach out. And I guess we're gonna have this conversation offline because I realize now that we're as an hour and 30 in. I want to see if we can cut this at this point.
Oh
Uh,
yeah.
but tomorrow I will be back on again tomorrow. Uh, and I'm hopefully I'll get the word out sooner, but I am working on the Odyssey thing right now. I'm being honest with you. That's I need to diversify, especially when I seen like I said the Hill, which is a reputable news source, got taken off YouTube, deplatformed, for covering news related subjects. And when I look at things like that, I'm like, okay, well, I need to diversify. I need to live what I'm talking about, being comfortable with being uncomfortable. I need to span it into not just on my own hard drive, but other platforms as well. And I'll be working on that again tonight, as well as putting out that Cain Velasquez stuff. So those people who like to get the legal information on the Cain stuff, I will be putting that out again. That'll be tonight. But yeah, I say, with that being said, as I'm gonna let you I'll let you get the word in before I close this out.
All right. Hey, I just want to. Hey, number one, gospel news. We need to get you up on here, man.
Most definitely.
Uh, so whenever you have time, like, hey, man, like, tap in, please. Second of all, say, hey, this is a dream. This is, you know, two black men seeing a vision together. We're not here. Uh, Here to abase anybody, man. We're here to uplift everybody, and we're just trying to keep a positive channel. So support the dream. Like, can we get a like? Can we get a subscribe? Can you share it? Can you share just the one person? And then after that, we can possibly grow this thing into something. Because I just want to have like a positive force, So therefore, we can have a positive force in this community. Because I'm tired of not when you go on YouTube, right? Okay, how many positive forces, do you see? That's not like a gossip type thing, like true men type stuff,
Yeah.
But yeah, pass it back on over to you for last word.
All right. So last words. I'm going to read these last two comments. There's no way around the black unit. Absolutely. That's facts. I agree with that. Under Shabazz will not go. I agree with that as well. So I know I haven't told you before when I started off. I didn't tell you how much I love you guys, care about you. Hope the day went great. That as always, that it continues to go good. And may you always, always, always be blessed with peace in your life. And let me read these last two comments before I go off the air. That says, what are your target goals and agenda? I will put that, you know what, I'm going to put not a manifesto, but I will put that out there. I say anywhere as a people divide. Yeah. I say, look at what, again, I'm going to encourage everybody. Just look at the memoirs for J. Edgar Hoover. And with that, we are out. Love you guys. Thank you guys for joining us. We'll talk again tomorrow. Good night. This